So in this segment, we're going to be discussing Britons suffer larger price rises for basics than EU shoppers. So Britons are paying, or British people are paying more for their everyday products like milk and baby food than other Europeans as inflation chips away at household budgets. So at one point during the year, inflation was around 20%, with some basics like eggs skyrocketing. The inflation growth rate has slowed down a bit. It's around 15.4% according to the Times, but that's still, the price of goods going up by around 15%. The rate of increase has slowed down, but the prices are still comically high, and they are still going up, and you can see that in your food bill every week. The opposition parties need to talk about how the UK is world beating in this regard. An analysis of supermarket sales transactions shows the UK experienced the steepest increase across most of the 10 major product groups, compared with an average of prices in Germany, France, Italy, Spain, and the Netherlands. Milk and cheese prices jumped the most in the year to March, but pet food, laundry, detergent, infant formula, and diapers also recorded more marked increases than in Europe, according to data provider Circana. These are developed countries, with some of them being in the G7. So, ones you can actually compare to. Why have they been less impacted than us by a considerable amount? These are the questions the media needs to ask. Britain is largely outpacing Europe too on a price per unit basis. For example, UK shoppers pay 5.6 euros or $5.45 per container of laundry detergent, compared with 2.68 euros in Spain. The analysis will fuel debate about the soaring cost of food in Britain, with frustration setting in as shoppers absorb the sharpest jump in prices since 1997. And I do wonder if they're comparing brands like for like, or how they get in the figures, because I really hope they're not doing anything dodgy there. But that is a massive price difference, around, I think it's just under double, really. It's just ridiculous. Groceries have now replaced energy costs as the biggest cause of inflationary concern for the Bank of England. Prime Minister Sunak has launched a series of reviews into the fairness of food supply chains, just as the country's antitrust regulator investigates the costs of groceries. And we've got some support for the energy costs, which went out to every person. But for other costs like food, the support has been nothing short of a joke. The government can do windfall taxes on these supermarkets who, despite also complaining about the cost of goods, are still making huge profits. So clearly they're doing okay, but the average person is not doing okay. So it does show you how bad the cost of essentials are in the UK. For food to become as inflationary as the energy costs, according to the Bank of England, is incredibly concerning. The government will struggle to bring the cost of food down because they keep putting off farmers within the UK from planting more stuff, and even then the seasonal agricultural policy is a joke. So farmers can't even pick the stuff that they've got because they don't have the staff to do it. So you have a massive shortage of farmers planting within the UK and harvesting crops. They've been put off by high energy costs and high input costs. So domestically, we're not producing more. And they've made imports way more expensive via Brexit and doing, the minimal import checks we're doing, and the customs fees and other things. For EU exporters to export to the UK, they have to fill out a load of paperwork. It's expensive. So it makes the UK prohibitive versus other countries, especially within the EU. This lot are a bunch of clowns, let's be honest. Quote, people are in despair, end quote, said Angela Muhan, Chief Executive Officer of Scottish anti-poverty charity The Larder, which is a cool name for a charity, I'll be honest, a food one. She said, quote, people were having to choose between heating and eating, now they can't afford to do either, end quote. We lived in a country for so long that austerity bit some people so hard to the point where they died of poverty. We lived in a country where they talked about it for so many years, people have to choose between heating and eating. Now they can't do either. The Tories broke the social contract, and it's the people, especially, the elderly, that are paying the price for it, the ones that are dying because they don't want to put the heating on, the ones that are suffering, getting all sorts of illnesses because their houses are too cold to live in. I do feel for them. I really do. We're going to do a video hopefully soon on the state of the care homes when the pandemic hit, and some of these people died in the worst way, I'll be honest. Supply chain weaknesses. So Britain is a net importer, meaning it's extra vulnerable to tight supply chains. Leaving the European Union hasn't helped. I hope that's sarcasm. or not sarcasm, but you're downplaying it a lot. Research by the Centre for Economic Performance at the London School of Economics found that Brexit added an extra 5.8 billion to the consumers' food bills in the 2 years to the end of 2021. So that figure there is interesting, 5.8 billion. So we only left the transition period at the start of 2021. So for the costs to be around 5.8 billion is madness. According to the London School of Economics, in a more recent Guardian article, Brexit has cost people £7 billion a year in food costs since Brexit. So I wonder, these numbers seem a bit off here. But regardless, I'm sure people would be happy to have seen some of that money in savings on their food bills. And it's not just the food bills that are the problem, but if the Lib Dems said, Brexit's added this much to food bill costs, I'm sure people would resonate with that. And before anyone comes in with our payments to the EU budget were higher and blah, 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 we're still paying into the EU budget right now due to our commitments to the budget at the time when it was agreed, plus other liabilities like former MEPs and their pensions like Nigel Farage, and for civil servants as well. So we're still paying a lot into the EU budget because of the amount that was agreed. Plus our contribution to the EU was around 8.9 billion in 2018. So the food bills are near that cost anyways. Talking billions of pounds a year just on food bills. That's not even talking about the lost taxes and all the other problems we're facing, just on food. And the fun part is the cost of these imports should be way higher. The only reason they're not is because the UK is doing minimal import checks. The government should be doing way more things like physical inspections and things like that in order to avert kind of a food crisis happening in terms of diseases. But they're not doing that. That would push up the cost dramatically if they did, and that's why they didn't. This allows kind of tainted meats and other things to sneak in the country. Vets have been warning for a couple of years now about the threats of certain animal-based diseases, but the government don't care because it costs money. This is a Brexit win, no doubt. 2 years into the inflationary crisis, cracks are opening up that are, quote, too wide for food banks and charities to blast over, end quote, said Labour MP Siobhan McDonough. Butchered that one, sorry. She said a likely drop in the rate of inflation next week will be, quote, cold comfort to consumers who rightly wonder whether any failing costs will ever be passed back to them, end quote. And, we can ask the supermarkets to do that, but they ain't going to do it. But we can always...
Start praying, boy!
We probably won't see much in terms of savings, but why would they cut their prices when there's not a ton of competition from other supermarkets? Let's be honest here, all they're going to do is look at what the other supermarkets do. If no one else drops the price, they ain't going to do it. Because, the kind of competition we have, I think, in my opinion, is a bit false. It's a bit false. They might drop the price of things like milk and other essentials, but for the vast majority of goods, they're not going to do it because they know they can make money, kind of price gouging on other goods, because some people do shop around and go to multiple supermarkets. I'll be honest, I don't do that, and I don't really know anyone else that does that, because you're just wasting a lot of time and fuel doing that. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.